Welcome back to Roundhouse Radio 98.3. I'm Kirk LaPointe to be your host until 8 o'clock tonight. We're continuing our all candidates discussions. I don't really call them debates. They haven't been too much of a debate club thing going on yet. Certainly not in this half hour yet. Well, again, we give it some time. My guests are Nigel Elliott, who's running for the BC Liberals, James Marshall, who is running for the Greens, and Spencer Chandra Herbert, who is the MLA. He's also running again for re-election for the NDP. We talked before the break about what you were hearing in the riding, and affordable housing probably being top of mind. What else is out there? Is there a wild card issue at the moment that you see emerging out of this campaign, Spencer?
I don't know about a wild card issue because I certainly have heard about it for years, but it's really to do with health care, particularly for seniors, but really for everybody. Given the Liberal government's decision to close and move St. Paul's Hospital after promising that instead they would actually rebuild it in the West End, there's a lot of people wondering what will be left behind.
How far do you have to go?
Yeah, exactly. And if you break your arm, are you going to have to leave downtown and get it fixed? Or if you don't have a family doctor and you're feeling ill, where do you go? And so what we've been proposing is an urgent care center. The idea that really many of West End, in fact, most West Enders, the most number of people, I should say, in the West End don't have doctors compared to everywhere else in the province.
Right.
Despite a promise that everyone would have a doctor by 2015, we're far from that. So I think we need to provide urgent care in the West End, and that means...
in St. Paul's urgent care center can often be the place, isn't it?
Well, indeed. It can be a place for... I know people go there who don't have doctors when they've got a fever. Right. Now, you don't want them in the emergency room, but if they don't have a doctor, where are they going to go? And so our argument is for, most emergency care will go to the new facility, but we'll create a smaller facility, urgent care center, where you can get access to a doctor, nurse practitioner.
And that's an NDP commitment?
That's what I'm arguing for, absolutely. And urgent care centers, not just in downtown Vancouver, but across the province, because it's not just the West End that's facing a lack of doctors, lack of connection to medical care. It's right across the province. But I think it's a better healthcare model because you don't always need to see a doctor. Sometimes you need a dietitian. Sometimes you need a nurse. And if you could do a coordinated care system, you're providing better care at a better price. And I think the St. Paul's site, as part of whatever comes up there, would be an ideal location for it.
Nigel Elliott, what issues do you think might be more germane to the riding, but maybe aren't necessarily on the provincial radar in a full way? What are you hearing?
Well, I think with the issue of St. Paul's, I'm hearing a lot about that as well. And I am hearing certainly a need for and a desire for some kind of a healthcare facility or a healthcare component to whatever actually.
That's quite a trek.
Pardon me?
That's a long trek between West End over to St. Paul's. I mean, people are, I can see where they're going to use a lot of walk-in clinics,
Yeah, so I think that what the solution is that we arrive at and what facility or what comprises the facility that actually ends up on the site that the current St. Paul's facility is on. I'm certainly in favor of pushing toward
You'd fight
creating
for that
some
too.
kind of a healthcare facility there to try to make sure that we are compensating for some of the services that are going to be a little bit further away.
Okay.
So certainly that's something that I would advocate for, and I am hearing a lot about that as I talk to people in our community.
James Marshall with the Greens?
I'm honestly just going to triple down on that as well because that's is what I've heard from a lot of people, and I've talked to
Nobody's upset about the Vancouver Canucks?
Well, no. But I've talked to a lot of people that specifically have told me that they moved to the West End so they would be close to a hospital. Like that was the purpose of them going there.
Right.
And now that it's been pulled out from under them, that wasn't what they signed up for. So that's I understand that if I am lucky enough to be elected as an MLA, that'll be my first and most time-consuming job in terms of local representation, would be advocating for healthcare facilities in the West End.
When you think about what is facing the province in the way of economic challenges and all that, I mean, the Liberals, to be fair, have had balanced budgets. And I think the worry of those that don't support either the NDP or the Greens is that, look, there will be some deficits here. Convince me that that's all right. James?
Yeah, I'll convince you the deficits are all right. We are planning for balanced budgets across our mandate instead. The goal is just the idea being that...
But not to start.
Not to start, but it's small at the start and it becomes a surplus later on. The idea is that because we've cut funds out of so many things, it actually winds up costing a lot more money. The idea being, preventative can wind up saving you a lot more money than
you get early childhood care.
Yeah.
And 25 years later, you don't have healthcare costs.
Yeah,
or
that's the idea.
Legal costs or anything. Right.
Yeah, and the focus on balanced budgets every year, no matter what, can mean that we don't spend when we need to spend and when we have opportunities to spend when it's better for the province to do so. Because we're locked to this idea of we have to only balance the budget every time. When you have a full mandate, you can spread it out over that.
Got it. Spencer,
I would argue
I think you might be a little bit on the hook here because I think people are looking at the NDP and saying, well, there are going to be some increases here.
Well, I would argue.
How do you manage that?
Yeah, I would argue for balanced budgets too. It's how I operate my own life. It's something that we should aim for. And I think the difference between us and the BC Liberals on this question is that in order to get there, yes, there will be some fee increases on the top end. Instead of giving what amounted to over a couple of years $1 billion tax break for the richest 2% in our population, we think they can afford to pay it. And I had a guy stop me the other day, makes $350,000 a year. Says he's willing to see his income tax increase a bit because he thinks we need to address homelessness. We need to address the health care issues in our community. And I think that's a more balanced approach as opposed to just saying, well, too bad, you're on the street. We're not going to deal with this issue because we're just focused on a balanced budget and giving money to the richest 2%. I'd rather actually go and make sure it's a bit more balanced between those with the most and those with the least.
Okay. Nigel?
Sure. So, and I think that you identify quite clearly one of the main issues that people are thinking about in this election, just overall across the province, and that's the economy and who's best to kind of steer us forward. I think the BC Liberals have had a pretty solid track record with 5 consecutive balanced budgets, the lowest unemployment rate in the country, and we have a plan in place to pay off our operating debt by 2021. And this is a really important example for me of why it is important to focus on balancing our budgets. That's going to save our taxpayers $500 million a year just by paying down that operating debt. And that's money that can be rediverted into the services that we need. So my philosophical view is that we cannot see any separation between the importance of having a strong economy and the delivery of high-quality services for people. So if we keep a laser focus on keeping our economy strong, balancing our budgets, making sure we're not spending too much money on debt repayment and on interest fees, we can divert that money better toward the services and the people who need those services the most.
I've asked other candidates this question, and I've gotten some very good answers. So you're being put to the test, okay?
Okay.
Which is, so you win on May 9th. That's nice. What's the first bit of advice that's germane from your riding that you give to the Premier? James.
Oh, wow. I'm first up. Care about housing, because you'll lose people if you don't care about housing, because there is a tremendous amount of people both in my riding and just across the province who that is their most important thing. And if you don't focus on that, I think you're going to lose young people going forward, because it's the economy that they're growing up in. Can't afford a house, can't afford rent. And if your party's not one that's willing to act on it, then they're going to have a bad view of you for quite a long time. Nigel Elliott of the Liberals?
Yeah, so my advice would be to continue to maintain your focus on growing our economy, keeping our economy strong, so that we can continue to make those record investments that we've made in housing, in education, healthcare, and other services. That would be my main piece of advice.
So stay the course?
Yes.
Yeah. Spencer?
I'd say fulfill your promises. Don't take the public for granted. So let's cut the MSP. Let's build 114,000 low-income rental, social housing, and for sale housing units. Let's actually act to deal with the affordability crisis that we're facing, and be upfront with the public. And also, just throw it in here. Look to your opponents and ask them for their advice too, because there are good ideas in all political parties. And currently, our current government doesn't listen to the other political parties very often. But I think we should do more of that.
So narrow the gap between the campaign promise and the governing operation. Yeah,
that's right. I think people need to know that the people that they voted for, who told them what they, who promised these things, actually can do what they say they want to do. Fulfill your promises and be upfront with the public if you're challenged and can't.
I'll agree with that wholeheartedly too.
Listen, all three of you have been very generous with your time today. I really want to thank you for coming in. Good luck on the 9th of May. I guess you'll be knocking on doors until 11:59 on the 8th, or something like that.
For the rest of today as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, that's good. Good to have you all three here.
Thanks so much, Kirk.
Thank you.
James Marshall of the Greens, Nigel Elliott of the BC Liberals, and Spencer Chandra Herbert. How's the baby, by the way?
Oh, the baby's so good.
No, enough of baby.
All right.
As long as you weren't going to say, driving me crazy. Okay. Spencer Chandra Herbert of the NDP.